y'all. We'll be starting a new mystery arc next week, but this week I have a real treat for you. The cast of RPG Major recently recorded a collab episode with Ladies of Lore. India, who hosts Ladies of Lore, did a deep dive on the history of the Siren and invited us onto her show to create songs as she taught us about the Siren's origins, evolution, and modern representations. I'd really encourage you to go subscribe to Ladies of Lore. As you'll hear, India is a fantastic researcher, host, and storyteller, and I know I've learned quite a lot listening to her show. And now, please enjoy Ladies of Lore, the musical.
And welcome back to Ladies of Lore, the podcast where we take all of the most amazing women of mythology and folklore and we unpick, unravel and explore their origins, their stories and how they've changed through time to arrive in today's modern world. I'm India and I am so very grateful to have you here with me today. Since posting my TikTok, there's quite a few more ears listening to the podcast. I was going to say new faces then, which I suppose is also true, but you don't listen with your face. So I'll go with ears. So I am very excited about today's episode because today I'm joined by the lovely people from RPG Major. If you've been listening for a while, you might very well remember the clip of theirs that I included in the episode before. It was an amazing improvised song and it made me smile so much that I had to include it. These guys are honestly incredible at what they do. Their podcast is an improvised musical theatre RPG actual play podcast, and it follows a group of private investigators as they solve supernatural mysteries. And when they reached out to me to see if I'd be down for a joint episode, there was just no way I was going to say no to that. How could I say no to that? Because the nerd inside me was screaming. It was screaming. I love musical theatre. I'm also a massive fan of RPG podcasts like Dungeons and Daddies and Worlds Beyond Number and D20. So this was a bit of a no-brainer for me. So I will pass it over to RPG Major to do a little bit of a hello to you all.
Hello. And India, thanks so much for having us. Your audience can't see the amount that we are grinning and giggling over here.
Yeah, big time
because
smiles.
we have been enjoying listening to you as well. So my name is Helix, pronouns he, him. I am the host and game master for RPG Major, and I've got some incredibly talented performers in the room with me.
Hi, I'm Lauren. My pronouns are she, her. And it wasn't visible how much I was like freaking out when you were doing your intro.
I could see it.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is what I hear in the car and like it's happening in real life. But yes, maybe I won't speak on my character yet.
But if you want to talk about your musical theater.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, it's been so much fun improvising with this crew. And I come from a musical theater background, performing a lot in Seattle, but also a musical improv background. And I'm excited to do some singing in more ways than one. Do this arc, yeah.
Hi, my name is Camilla. My pronouns are she, her, and I am one of the other players on RPG Major. I am an improviser, a musical improviser, also an artist and illustrator. And I think, as most people who know me would be able to guess without me even saying, was a huge mythology kid. And am now a big-time mythology adult. So I'm really, really, really excited to talk some lore.
Mm-hmm. The Percy Jackson nerd and my 10-year-old self would be screaming right now.
Okay, my cousin and I, to talk Percy Jackson quickly, my cousin and I had a game we would play where we would draw characters on little index note cards and tell stories about them. And we had one about the demigod children of Greek gods who went to boarding school together and had classes based on who their godparent was. And then 2 years later, Percy Jackson came out. So
They
Rick
stole
Riordan,
it
if
from
you're
you.
listening.
It was stolen. Oh my God, you heard it here on Ladies of Lore. Percy Jackson was stolen.
They're halting season 2 of the TV show. No.
This is my first time on a microphone, I think, in the entire almost year history of RPG Major. So yeah, my name is Noah. My pronouns are he, him, and kind of like Harpo Marx, I generally have been speaking through my instrument, but now I'm on mic. So what else do you need to know about me?
How do you feel about musical improv or RPGs?
I played some Dungeons and Dragons as a tween, and then I never really played since. It's intimidating intellectually for me. So it's nice just to look at it from a musical perspective and then treat it as a musical experience and play music along with it.
For any of your listeners who might not know, RPG is short for role-playing game, which is basically a combination of a storytelling game with a board game where you choose what your character is doing and sometimes roll dice to see if they succeed. The three of us here are improv comedians out of the Seattle area. We met in the improv scene and then started doing this show together.
About a year ago.
I think it would be useful to introduce your characters as well.
Yeah.
It's going to tie into the episode as far as I understand. I say, looking at Lauren.
Well, I was going to wonder if you want to speak on Aubrey's.
I'll speak on Aubrey first because she's less relevant to the topic at hand. My character is named Aubrey, and she is a landscaper and gardener and private detective who had a little adventure in her youth where she kind of got Narnia'd into a fairy world, went on a bunch of wonderful adventures, became queen, lived there for an indeterminate but extensive number of years, and then got shunted out the way those Narnia kids did, was a kid again and had to start 8th grade in a few weeks. And that meant that she had a really great and well-adjusted teenagerhood and didn't have to deal with that at all. And now she's a perfectly adjusted adult who has no issues with what has happened. But she's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
She really is.
I love Narnia as a verb.
Yeah. We all dream of getting Narnia'd.
We did here today. I'll take it. Great.
Well, and a friend, longtime friend to Aubrey, is my character Mara Vertere. And I guess the way that she kind of puts a front and navigates the world, her family, specifically the women in her family, are kind of the queen pins wherever they go. And she definitely gets uncomfortable when Odysseus is brought up because she's a siren. She is descended from a long line of sirens. The Vertere family, those ladies. Let's go, divas. They're running it, for better or for worse. Yes, literally slay. And she, she's got some complicated feelings about this hunger that always gnaws away inside of her with no end. How do you be a good person if you're maybe not a person, but you also but maybe are her actions justified if she's just trying to, balance the scales of all the harm men have done? Sorry, whoa.
I think when we talk about the Vertere family, we're talking about supporting women's rights and women's wrongs.
Yeah. Exactly. What was her first character description? Confident girl boss who cares? That's her.
Yeah.
I love that.
And we did extensive research into every mythology that we've ever included, even slightly, on our show, because that's really what our show is about getting things right.
Yeah.
Getting things right.
And planning.
No.
The thing about improv is that you really have time to go do a long fact check whenever anything comes up.
Yeah.
And sometimes a player will make something up and throw you a huge curveball, and you get to say, no, this isn't a story anymore. This is research time.
So we're very excited to fill in the gaps today.
Yeah. Then you'll know what you're working with. You can weave this into your show.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a very different kind of episode of Ladies of Lore, but hopefully one that you all enjoy and gives you a bit of a fun experience of learning about this week's topic, which is the Sirens. So for centuries, their song has been an irresistible call, but also a warning. They have lured sailors to their doom, transformed across cultures, and still they find a place today in our modern world. But where did they come from? And what makes them so deadly? And are they still singing to us today? So let's set sail into the history of the Sirens. And if you guys want to do a little song to lead us into the origins, please
Are they still singing about us to us
Yeah,
today?
are they still singing today?
Whoa, that gave me chills. Yeah, we could sing about that.
Yeah.
Voices lost at sea.
Is there room for stories, or do you have to know the facts? Is there room for someone to tell their version of that? Is there room for intuition? Is there room for greed? Is there room for a family of women who rule and feed?
Still I sing, still I sing, still I sing, with all the dangers it brings. Still I sing.
1,000 years ago, someone sang a note and put it in a bottle. 1,000 years later, washes up on a beach full throttle, and the words inside the glass within them carry echoes from the past. They were singing then, and if you open that bottle, they will sing again.
Still I sing.
If you open up the bottle, they will sing again.
Still I sing.
Still I sing.
Dangers that it brings.
Still I sing.
Wow. Thank you so much. That was amazing. That was much better than my usual theme music. Might have to reuse that. So, the origins of the Sirens in Greek mythology trace back to some of the earliest literary sources of the ancient world. They are first mentioned in Homer's Odyssey, where they appear as enchanting creatures whose songs lure sailors to their doom. And we'll talk more about that story in a bit. But in this early depiction, Homer doesn't really describe their physical form and leaves later sources to develop this well-known hybrid appearance that they have. But if we look at Homeric art and sort of vase and tomb decoration, or vase and tomb decoration, just so everybody knows what I'm saying, because I say vase, sirens are usually depicted in this hybrid form there as well. And the origins of the name Siren are uncertain, but there are a few theories as to where it came from. So one actually suggests that it comes from the Greek verb meaning to bind or to entwine. And this definitely aligns with the Sirens' mythological function as creatures who both ensnare and captivate sailors with their enchanting voices. Their song metaphorically binds their victims, preventing them from escape, and ultimately leads them to their doom. And another possible origin connects their name to the old Greek word for a type of cord or rope, and that could symbolise the way that sirens metaphorically tie men to their fate through irresistible seduction. And it could also be a link to the seafaring culture, where ropes and knots were essential. And I did read a very interesting take, which said that it could actually link to sexual pleasure and bondage.
Yeah, girl.
After all, the sirens were seducing these men. And it would track, because music and sexuality were very deeply linked in Greek mythology. Music was frequently a tool of seduction with gods and mortals, and even supernatural creatures like the sirens. They use it to lure lovers in, because there's nothing more erotic than a song.
Amen.
And I guess by that logic, it probably means this is the most erotic episode of Ladies of Law ever. Sorry, guys. But in all seriousness, it's true. It's there in Greek mythology over and over again. Orpheus, Apollo, Daphne, Pan, who created the Pan flute, which was an instrument forever tied to unfulfilled desire and sexual longing. So music, sex and love go hand in hand throughout Greek mythology. And ancient writers also speculated about the meaning of the name too, because some associated it with the idea of dryness or withering, which is the opposite of erotic, and links the sirens to a destructive force that drains life and vitality. And others, like the Neoplatonist philosopher Porphyr, in On the Cave of the Nymphs, interpret sirens not as a literal creature, but more as an allegorical symbol of the temptations that ensnare the soul in the material world. And drawing from Homer's Odyssey, where the siren song lures sailors into their doom, Porphyr sees them as representing the seductive distractions of sensory pleasures, fame, and worldly knowledge that prevent the soul from ascending to a higher intellectual and spiritual realm. So, influenced by Platonic and Stoic thought, he aligned the sirens with the lower irrational aspects of the soul that must be overcome through philosophical discipline. Ultimately, while the exact origin of the name remains uncertain, its associations with binding, song, and fatal attraction align really well with the mythological function of sirens in Greek literature. Their name encapsulates their power to captivate and destroy, reflecting both their alluring and menacing nature. But where did they come from in the first place? Well, Hesiod, in his now lost catalogue of women, and later authors, such as Ovid, expand on the origins of the sirens and their parentage. They're frequently said to be the daughters of the river god Achilles, and the muses, variously named Melpomene or Calliope, depending on the source. So it's a bit ambiguous, but the suggestion of the suggestion of a divine lineage associates them with both the musical and aquatic realms, reinforcing their dual nature as both alluring and perilous. So there we go. That's the duality of women popping up yet again.
Yeah.
Backtracking just a little bit, I want to give you some context on Hesiod's catalogue of women, because
I was about to ask about the catalogue of women.
Yeah, every time I read, I picture, and this is going to be a very British reference, I picture the Argos catalogue. So, sorry RPG Major, sorry anyone that's not English that's listening.
It's all right.
I don't know if you guys have an equivalent. It might be like the Macy's catalogue or JCPenney or Sears or something like that. Mm-hmm. So what I picture is a big catalogue, and it's just full of Greek women. Like each page is a giant top trumps card. You know? That's what I picture, but sadly that's not what it is. It's in fact a fragmentary epic poem, which is usually attributed to Hesiod, but its exact authorship does remain a little bit uncertain. So it's believed that this was composed between the late 7th and early 6th centuries BCE, and served as a sort of genealogical epic that traced the heroic lineage of various Greek families through their maternal ancestry, which is really interesting. It's an interesting take to look at it sort of through a maternal lineage point of view. And this catalogue of women functioned as a mythological Wikipedia. It really detailed the relationships between mortal women and gods, particularly Zeus, Poseidon, and other Olympians who fathered many of Greece's greatest heroes.
Percy Jackson.
So many. The work expanded upon themes introduced in Theogony and Work and Days, which, if you remember, we mentioned way back in episode 1 of Ladies of Lore, and emphasises the role of divine intervention in shaping human history. It provided a structured account of heroic genealogy, which would have been essential for understanding the lineage of major figures like Perseus, Heracles, and Achilles. Although the poem doesn't survive in its entirety, significant portions of it have been preserved through later authors and papyrus discoveries. So there is still parts of it about. You can find it online. I'll pop some links in the show notes so you can see that. But the preserved material suggests that the catalogue of women was divided into multiple books, each detailing a different branch of heroic descent, and it likely began with a prologue that set the stage for genealogies, followed by sections arranged by the different family lines. And this was very much an influential text in later Greek literature because it shaped the way that genealogies were understood in Greek mythology, and it influenced subsequent epic traditions. While the Homeric epics focus primarily on male heroes and their deeds, Hesiod's work placed a greater emphasis on female figures who gave birth to them, providing a broader perspective on mythological history, which is, like I said, pretty cool. And even despite it only remaining in fragments, it's such an important document in helping us understand early Greek mythology. And there's the first tangent of the day from me. While later traditions commonly portray sirens as part bird and part women, earlier Greek representations were a little bit more ambiguous, and the bird-like form likely derives from Near Eastern traditions that influenced Greek art and myth. So winged female figures, they appear in Mesopotamian and Egyptian iconography. And again, we've spoken about this before on previous episodes. So it's entirely possible that the Greek concept of the sirens was shaped by this cultural exchange. As Greek culture evolved, so did the portrayal of the sirens. During the Hellenistic period, sirens changed in their artistic and literary depictions while maintaining their core identity as alluring yet dangerous creatures. Originally, as we know, sirens in Greek mythology were hybrid beings, part bird and part women. But by the Hellenistic era, By the Hellenistic era, artistic representations of sirens in this period retained that hybrid form, but became a little bit more expressive, a little bit more refined. So lots of sculptures and reliefs and funerary monuments that frequently depicted these sirens in moments of song or lamentation, suggesting a bit more of an association with the afterlife. And there's a really striking example of this from in Asia Minor and Greece. There's a funerary sort of relief where the sirens are shown as accompanying the deceased into the afterlife, which is really interesting to look at. It's not an image that you usually think of with the sirens.
No.
One of the most famous Hellenistic depictions of the sirens comes from the Pergamon altar, where they appear in this dramatic frieze. Here, they're not merely passive singers, but they're actually active participants in this massive cosmic battle between gods and giants. And again, I'm going to put a little link to that in the show notes so you can take a look. But their presence here is definitely suggestive of an expansion of their mythological role beyond their traditional place in Homeric poetry. Literary depictions of sirens also evolved during this period, so Hellenistic poets, particularly those influenced by Alexandrian scholarship, often reinterpreted mythological figures with a learned and intricate approach. Callimachus, for instance, references sirens in ways that emphasize their poetic and prophetic nature, rather than them just being sort of seductive and destructive. And then there's plenty of other examples. So, for instance, in the Argonautica, there's a bit of a different take there on their story by having Orpheus drown out their song with his lyre, allowing Jason and the Argonauts to pass through safely. I've heard a lyre being played. They're not that loud.
No.
They're not that loud. So what I picture, I like to talk about what I picture a lot, just for an insight into my brain. I picture like an amped up lyre, you know,
Right.
like a flying V lyre, an electric lyre, if you will. But, you know, that's what I feel like you would need to drown out
Right.
a siren
This
song.
is so
But
much
yeah.
better than what I was picturing, which was a guy seeing a group of women like singing with each other across the street and pulling out his Wonderwall acoustic guitar and just trying so loud, just playing it so loud,
Very Ken from the Barbie
desperately trying to drown out the noise.
movie. Play guitar at you.
Yeah, that's. I'm glad we're sharing this vision. Brilliant. But yeah, this episode definitely reimagines the sirens' role, and it makes them more of a test of human resilience and musical prowess rather than just a simple threat. In addition to literature and visual art, sirens continue to appear in decorative arts, including pottery and jewellery, reflecting their ongoing popularity in both elite and everyday contexts. In Hellenistic Italy, for instance, sirens were frequently depicted in mosaics, sometimes in association with Dionysian themes, emphasising their connection to ecstasy and altered state of consciousness, because worshipping Dionysus was pretty wild, and again, holds this connection to music and singing and dancing and being erotic. Ultimately, the Hellenistic period saw sirens transformed from mere dangers to symbols of artistic inspiration, death, and transcendence. While their fundamental mythological essence remained intact, their depictions became richer and more multifaceted, reflecting the period's fascination with reinterpretation, scholarship, and the blending of cultures.
I'm going to offer Transcending Danger.
Ooh. Okay.
Crack on, I love it.
Wow, that's cool.
What kind of song should this be, Helix?
I think it should be a little bit mystical and like should go like start in danger and end in
We'll just be transcendent by the end of it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Cool.
easy.
We'll transcend.
Transcendent. It's a great word.
Baser instincts, hunt and kill, every day. Chase them down, drag them under, don't let them get away. Danger around every corner, blades in the dark. Danger around every corner, but maybe a spark.
I know what you see, looking at me. Try to drown it out before I drown you. Down, down, down. I'm seeing red, but you ain't seen nothing yet. Wait till the end.
Light around every corner, filling the sky. Light around every corner.
You say you're afraid of the echoes that come from the light and the doom that they bring. But maybe I'm not the end, just the psychopomp carrying words on the wing. I might be the challenge you face, but I don't hate your end. What if my purpose was only to guide you beyond? Would you think me a friend?
Change around every corner. What comes next?
What comes next?
Change around every corner.
What comes next?
Change around every corner. What comes next? Change around every corner. Maybe our story can transcend. Hey, we got there eventually. We found it.
Love that.
Yeah.
That was amazing. And that leads us on really nicely to talk about the Roman period, where sirens continue to evolve in both artistic and literary traditions, reflecting the changing cultural and philosophical landscape of the empire. While the Greek origins as bird women who lured sailors to their doom remained foundational, Roman interpretations increasingly emphasized their connections to death, the afterlife, and the power of music, adapting them to new contexts in literature and decorative motifs. In Roman funerary art, for instance, sirens were frequently depicted as more mournful, almost benevolent figures, rather than malevolent temptresses. Malevolent temptresses, that's a really hard word to say. Rather than malevolent temptresses, sarcophagi from the imperial period often featured sirens in lamentation poses, a little bit like what I said before, but it's getting more and more towards being sort of this sad figure rather than a malevolent one. And they're playing musical instruments in these depictions. They're escorting souls of the dead to the underworld. And this transformation aligned them more closely with the psychopomps.
Hey.
Yeah. So this transformation aligned them more closely with the psychopomps. I can't say it. I feel nervous.
I don't think I said it right in the song.
This transformation aligned them more closely with the psychopomps, who were spiritual guides rather than threats. And this type of imagery sort of suggests that sirens, once symbols of dangerous seduction, had perhaps become figures of transition, embodying the sorrow and the beauty of death. A notable example is the Portinaccio sarcophagus, where sirens are carved with wings and, again, lyres, not flying V lyres, unfortunately, normal lyres, reinforcing their musical and funerary significance. And you already know you're going to get a link to see that in the show notes. I'll put it in there for you to have a look at. Roman literature also reflected this shift in how sirens were perceived. While the Homeric tradition remained influential, especially in Virgil's work, where Aeneas is warned to avoid their deadly call, or other Roman writers reimagined them with different symbolic meanings. So Ovid, for instance, in his Metamorphoses, provides an origin story for the sirens that differs significantly from the earlier Greek portrayals, again, shifting their role from malevolent seductresses to mournful, tragic figures. And this reinterpretation aligns with Ovid's broader poetic tendencies, transforming mythological creatures through themes of change, loss, and divine punishment. Ovid's sirens...
Metamorphoses, if you will.
Ovid's sirens are described as the former companions of Persephone, or Prosperina, in Roman mythology, who, after her abduction by Pluto or Hades, they were transformed into this hybrid form. According to this version, the sirens were originally the handmaidens of Persephone, and their transformation was a direct consequence of their failure to prevent her kidnapping. Some versions of the myth suggest that Demeter either cursed them for not intervening or allowed them to transform so that they could search for Persephone across the land and the sea. And this marked departure from Homeric and Hellenistic sirens, who were primarily known for this sort of enchanting songs and deadly lore. So in contrast, Ovid's version strips away a lot of that threat and portrays them as victims. They're passive victims of fate rather than active seductresses, which is a massive difference.
Wow.
So this change in characterization can be understood within the broader context of Ovid's poetic style and Roman literary environment. So unlike earlier Greek epic poets like Homer, who emphasized heroism and conflict, Ovid was deeply interested in themes of transformation, loss, and the fluidity of identity. Metamorphoses is a collection of myths centered around physical and existential changes, and the sirens fit within this theme as beings whose transformation was an expression of grief rather than of danger. And their half-bird, half-woman form became a symbol of their in-between status. They're caught between their former human selves and the creatures that they became, unable to return to what they once were. Yeah, it's a little sad. Yeah. Take it away.
A funeral accompanying song or something about that in between, that just like, oh. So we talk about duality of woman, I feel like. Anyway,
yeah.
Maybe a song
Duality
like,
bingo.
Yeah, jeez. Something about that, yeah, being in between and maybe a victim of fate more than how you're perceived. Something like that.
What song would you like, if any?
Maybe something a little, I almost said angry, but I feel like I don't want it to be too upbeat. So something maybe like, what's the word? Like suppressed? Does that work? Back away before she screams. Make way. Run and hide what's inside, a creature too terrifying to name. How did I end up in this place? Why can't you look me in the face?
Wow.
What's left in the wake is what's left
It's
at the
what's
wake.
left at the wake. Yeah.
That's lyrical commentary.
Amazing. It's just so much fun.
For
Great.
us also. The
amount that I'm like, well, I know the human brain looks for patterns, and I was prepared to be like, whoa, we got so much wrong.
Mhm.
I fear it's almost the opposite, where I'm like, there are so many threads we could now follow and threads that exist. Well, that's, something we could discuss, but this is very cool.
No, cool. I'm glad. No, this is great.
Yeah.
Like I say, it's so much fun. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Ovid also wrote during the Augustan period, which is a time when Roman society was reshaping Greek myths to align with their own values and imperial ideology. So Roman adaptations of Greek myths often softened or reinterpreted elements to fit a more moralistic or philosophical framework. So the Sirens, previously symbols of mortal peril and temptation, were thus transformed into figures of sorrow and devotion, mourning Persephone rather than luring men to their deaths. And this adaptation aligns more closely with Roman ideals of loyalty and piety, making them more tragic than terrifying. Additionally, Ovid's version of the Sirens aligns them with the broader trend of women who suffer divine punishment in metamorphoses. So many female figures in his work are transformed against their will, often as a result of divine or male power. The Siren story, as you know, follows a similar pattern as they undergo this transformation that they did not choose, further embedding them within Ovid's exploration of themes of victimhood and loss. By shifting the focus from deadly seduction to sorrow and transformation, Ovid fundamentally changed the perception of sirens in Roman literature. His version made them less an obstacle for heroes and more an expression of mourning and divine retribution, reflecting his literary style and the cultural values of Augustan Rome. And then there were other mentions of the sirens too. So Pliny the Elder, for instance, in his Natural History, treats sirens a bit more skeptically. He classifies them among the many mythical creatures that he considers part of folklore rather than reality. And his rationalist approach reflects the Roman tendency to reinterpret mythological beings with a bit more of a pragmatic worldview. In decorative arts, sirens remained popular. They were all over mosaics, all over frescoes and luxury objects such as silverware and jewellery. In the Villa of Poppaea at Oplontis, a fresco depicts sirens as part of an elaborate seascape, blending their mythical allure with the Roman appreciation for marine-themed decor. Mosaics from Roman bathhouses also feature sirens among sea creatures, and this further reinforces their place in a broader mythological aesthetic rather than purely sinister figures. And when I said about marine-themed decor, I don't know about you guys, but all I thought was like, when you go into a bathroom and like the tiles are like light blue and there's like an anchor, like a wooden anchor on the wall, like pictures of dolphins.
Jar of shells.
Yep. The navy nautical stripes and the shower curtain.
Nautical. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm glad we're on the same page. By the later Roman period, sirens had largely lost their menacing edge. They became symbols of poetry and knowledge and melancholy. While their origins as dangerous seductresses never entirely disappeared, the Romans reshaped their mythology to align with their own values, turning them into figures of transition, inspiration, and mournful remembrance. Okay, I reckon that just about wraps up your deep dive into the origins of the sirens and their changes from Greek into Roman mythology. So why don't we have a listen to some stories about them?
I'm excited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can I ask a question that I feel a little silly asking?
No, fire away.
Are sirens ever depicted as fishy? Because we may have gotten some details wrong if they're primarily feathered, but I thought I remember.
Well. You wait. Just you wait.
Okay.
Yes, they are.
Great.
Don't worry.
Like,
We've got fish.
We've
got fish on the menu today, boys and girls.
Let's go.
It's coming. Don't worry.
Cool.
Do a very quick and upbeat story time song?
Oh, that's cute.
Just a little jingle.
Just a little, yeah.
Something upbeat. It's story time.
Yay!
I guess it's that time. It's time for a story.
Time for a story.
Is it about gloom? Or is it about glory? I guess it's that time.
you so much. I love these transitions. These are great.
There we go.
I might steal that one. For every episode.
Yeah, that's funny.
I think most of us probably know that one of the most famous encounters with sirens comes from Homer's Odyssey. So I think that's probably the best place to start. So I'll tell you that one. The story of the sirens in the Odyssey is one of temptation, danger, and human resilience, woven with vivid imagery and haunting words. As Odysseus continues his perilous journey home from Troy, he encounters many mythical beings, but few are as seductive and deadly as the sirens. Forewarned by the sorceress Circe, Odysseus knows that the siren song is an irresistible lure. Their voices promise wisdom, pleasure, and knowledge beyond human reach. Yet those who listen are doomed to perish. Circe advises him to plug his crew's ears with beeswax to keep them safe. But Odysseus, ever curious and longing for experience, devises a bit of a different plan. He instructs his men to tie him tightly to the mast, ordering them not to release him no matter how desperately he begs. He wants to hear the siren songs and he wants to live to tell the tale, which is a bit silly if you ask me. But I guess, in the words of Mr. Worldwide Pitbull, life is not a waste of time and time is not a waste of life. So let's stop wasting time, get wasted, and have the time of our lives.
So true.
As their
so wise.
Here's Pitbull on Ladies of Law. We get it all here. As their ship approaches the Sirens' island, a stillness falls over the sea. The wind drops and the air becomes unnaturally calm. And this eerie silence signals the start of the enchantment. Homer describes the moment with an almost hypnotic pull. They had no sooner left the island behind than I began to feel the wind drop, and a dead calm fell upon us. The sea became as smooth as glass, so I sent my men to furl the sails and stow them, then take to their oars and row with all their might. Meanwhile, I took a round piece of wax, cut it up small with my sword, and kneaded it in my strong hands. The wax soon became soft under the blaze of the sun, and I stopped the ears of all my men with it. They then bound me hand and foot to the mast, and I stood upright against it. I love how he describes his own hands as strong. That's very... it's a choice.
Thanks, King.
The sirens see the ship drawing near and they begin their song. Their voices, sweet as honey, pierce through the air, promising Odysseus all of the knowledge he craves. They call out to him, their words filled with cunning and allure. Come this way, honoured Odysseus, great glory of the Achaeans, and stay your ship so that you can listen to our voices. No one has ever sailed past us without staying to hear the sweet song that flows from our lips, and he who listens will go on his way, not only charmed, but wiser. For we know all things, all that happens on the fruitful earth, and all that is done beneath the godly sky. And the Sirens' promise is intoxicating. They claim to hold the secrets of the world, past and future. And they tempt him with this lure of divine knowledge, something that no mortal man can resist. Odysseus, true to his nature, is overwhelmed with desire. He strains against his bonds, begging his crew to set him free. But his men, deaf to the song and loyal to his earlier command, pull the ropes tighter. He writhes in agony, consumed by longing, but he cannot break free. And Homer captures his inner torment. I motioned them by nodding, but they only pulled harder. They got up and tightened the bonds so that I was held fast. And the ship rows past the island, and the siren's voice fades into the distance, and as they move beyond the range of the song, the spell breaks. Life and sound return to the world. Odysseus, exhausted and shaken, signals his men to release him. The sirens are left behind, their voices powerless, now that their prey has escaped. And this episode in the Odyssey is more than a tale of physical endurance. It's a profound explanation into human temptation. Odysseus embodies the conflict between intellectual curiosity and primal desire. He wants to know. He wants to know everything, even at the risk of his own life. And the Siren song isn't just beautiful, it speaks directly to his ego and his ambition and his yearning for the wisdom of the gods and the heroes. And the fact that he survives, bound but unbroken, is a testament to his strength and his reliance on the loyalty of his men. He can't overcome this one on his own, and Homer reminds us that even the greatest heroes need the support of others to resist the most insidious temptations. And the Sirens themselves remain an enigma. Like I said, Homer doesn't actually describe their appearance in the Odyssey. They are defined entirely by their voices. They are pure seduction without form or face. They symbolize a type of longing that transcends physical beauty. It's the allure of forbidden knowledge, of promises that sound too good to be true. I told you it was very erotic. Odysseus's encounter with the Sirens is one of his most human moments. He isn't battling a monstrous Cyclops here. He's not escaping the wrath of Poseidon here. He's battling himself. He's battling his own mind and his own desires. And his victory here is a quiet one. It's not marked by swordplay or cunning words, but by restraint and endurance. He endures the song and the pain and all of the unfulfilled longing, and he sails on. Later tradition adds to this legend. In some versions, the Sirens are fated to die if any mortal resists them, and when Odysseus escapes, they throw themselves into the sea, their own magic turned against them, which does add a little bit of extra drama and tragedy to the tale. So that's the story of Odysseus and the Sirens.
Is there like an Odysseus inner monologue song?
I feel like Sail On is probably the hook in there. Maybe?
Can I ask a question before we do a song? I'm curious about what you were saying about the way that people characterize this chapter of the Odyssey afterwards. Ancient Greek heroes always have these like fatal flaws, but also these incredible powers and strengths. And it's such an interesting and sort of complicated dynamic where it feels like it's really easy to moralize about afterwards, but in either direction, where it's like only he was strong enough to not be destroyed by this. And also he was the only one. This was a common thing I heard that I don't fully agree with, but like he's the only one that's stupid enough to put himself in this situation. And I'm curious about like how soon those kind of characterizations of Odysseus and whether different people in different eras see it as evidence of his strength or evidence of his fatal flaws.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think when we sort of look at all of these mythologies, they're all told, and different spins are put on people based on the sort of political, social context of the time. So I imagine for ancient Greeks, this was cool. This was like, he's a really strong guy. Like he's doing this because he's so amazing and so strong. And this is just a testament to his ability to endure and be able to resist this temptation. And whereas now we sort of look at it and we're like, why would you do that? Like, why would you put yourself in that position? And I guess it is an interesting question. And when I've done the research, I haven't really seen a turning point. If that's sort of what you're asking, isn't it? Where was the turning point? When did it become
maybe
a question of why are you doing this and not, wow, you did this thing? And I think it's very much a contextual thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But there was probably people in Greek times that read or listened to these, because they're usually told orally, and thought, what? Like, not everybody must have been into listening to these. But it is a really interesting question. I think that's made me want to read about it more. It's made me want to find some more perspectives, because it is what's the turning point? You know, when did people stop seeing this as a feat of strength and sort of as and raise questions about it instead, as sort of why what does that say about his character, other than that he's a strong guy and he can endure stuff? What else does it say about his character?
It is interesting that they have such a connotation of erotic seduction when this sort of classic siren temptation flavor is knowledge, which could have the connotation of carnal knowledge, but also just history, information, wisdom, insight.
I mean, the skeptic in me is like, how do you subdue people? Knowledge is bad. You don't get to know certain things.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
Yeah, control knowledge, you control a whole society.
Yeah.
The Sirens are like, visit our library.
Come and let us teach you things.
We have so many good programs. We have audiobooks.
There's a cool
we get
kids
a
corner.
free
They're like, no, we can't. We must be strong.
Free degree.
It's public.
Wow, public education. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, we're spinning the narrative here. Sorry.
Come to our island. We have free education.
Free
You can
education.
learn everything.
Student loan for kids.
You're going to get Americans flocking.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting because, you know, you sort of, I think your initial thought is, are they just luring men in to have sex with them? But actually, when you read what it actually says, it's not come here, I'm a sexy lady. It's come here, I've got all this sexy knowledge that I want to share with you. I'm going to tell you everything.
God.
You know? What's sexier than
That's
a big
hot.
brain? What's more
Nothing.
erotic?
Preach.
Knowledge.
Preach.
Yeah. Erotic knowledge.
God.
But yeah, no, it's really fascinating because I think most people do just have that image of Sirens of it just purely being a sexual thing, but actually it's kind of not. Kind of not. Kind of is, but kind of not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in any other context, a non-corporeal voice saying, I have knowledge would be harder to sexualize than they have been.
Yeah. Maybe they just had really nice voices.
Yeah.
Really
I think they did.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Do you want to do like an Odysseus moment or like a...
Sure.
Yeah. Or I also thought like a funny free education song is hilarious too.
Visit our
Whatever's
library
more
on Siren
totally
Island.
correct. What?
Visit the library on Siren Island.
Either song sounds fantastic to me.
Sorry, I don't actually want to do the song, but Siren U fight song.
I think Noah should just start playing something and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really I'm excited for this one.
What's that? What's this? What could it mean? Who's there? What's that? Secrets unseen. What's around the next corner? What's over that hill? Collecting secrets. I know I will sail on, sail on, sail on, sail on. A voice in the distance calling, whispering my name. How they know, how they hold all the secrets I could possibly contain. Sail on, sail on, sail on, sail on. Torn within myself, which way to go? Safety of my crew or secrets to know? Bind me here, tie me there, plug your ears, but I don't care. You all can sail on while I listen to this song. I don't care how history will judge me, don't care if it's wrong. Now men, sail on, sail on. The secrets behind me receding into. Sail on, sail on. Get this island over the horizon. Leave it behind.
Don't let it linger in your mind as you leave it behind.
Every night in my dreams I hear it. Every night in my dreams. calling me back to that island. Is it everything it seems I sailed on? Was that wrong? Paths diverged. Did I choose wrong?
That was cool.
I like that one. That was great.
That was cool.
Yeah.
Amazing. Wow. So now, why don't we hear the story of the Sirens as Ovid wrote it? And this one's probably a little more tragic. Long ago, before they were creatures of feather and song, the Sirens were maidens, beautiful, graceful, and beloved by Persephone, daughter of the harvest goddess Demeter. They walked with her through blooming meadows, laughing under the sun and weaving flower crowns in her hair. They were her closest friends, her confidants, and they never left her side. But one day, the earth split open with a deafening roar, and from the depths of the underworld rose Hades, god of the dead. His chariot, black as night, thundered across the field, and before the Sirens could cry out, before they could even reach her, he seized Persephone and dragged her down into the darkness, and the ground sealed shut behind them, and silence fell over the meadow. And the Sirens were left standing there frozen in horror, their hands still full of half-woven flowers. Grief crashed over them like a wave. They searched everywhere, calling her name into the wind, their voices raw with despair. But there was no answer. Persephone was gone, swallowed by the earth itself. Their hearts shattered, and they begged the gods for a gift, or a weapon, to help them find her. And Ovid said, they prayed for wings from the gods, and the gods granted their prayer. They kept the faces of girls, but grew feathers on their limbs, so that they could hover over the waves and call to the lost. And the gods heard them. But mercy and cruelty were often entwined with the gods, as you probably well know. Wings sprouted from their arms, feathers unfurling where soft skin once was, their legs twisted and sharpened into talons. They were no longer maidens, but they weren't fully birds either. They were creatures, caught between what they were and what they needed to become. Their faces, still achingly human, remained untouched, and their eyes brimmed with sorrow, and their lips, though unchained, held voices more beautiful than any mortals. And with their new form, they took to the skies and to the seas, searching endlessly for Persephone. They called across the waves, their song carrying over the water, sweet, mournful, and irresistible. But the girl that they loved was buried deep beneath the earth, beyond the reach of their cries. And so their song changed. It was no longer a call for Persephone, but a lament for what they had lost. Their voices became filled with the ache of grief, with longing so profound that it could unravel the heart of anyone who heard it. When sailors passed their island, they heard the music rising from the cliffs, a melody more beautiful than anything born of this world. It wasn't just a song, it was sorrow given shape, a sound that promised to soothe every pain, to fill every emptiness. The Sirens' voices seemed to whisper directly to the soul, offering comfort and knowledge beyond imagining. Come this way, honoured Odysseus, and stay your ship so you can listen to our voices. No one has ever sailed past us without staying to hear the sweet song that flows from our lips. And he who listens will go on his way, not only charmed, but wiser. And the Sirens didn't lie. Their song did make men wiser, but they never lived long enough to share what they had learned. The sweetness of their music wrapped around the heart like a silken cord, pulling sailors toward the rocky shore where jagged cliffs waited to shatter their ships. Yet the men didn't care. Drowning seemed like a small price to pay to hear such beauty a moment longer. And the Sirens didn't rejoice in this. They weren't monsters delighting in the death. They watched each ship sink with the same hollow eyes, the same empty sorrow. Every drowned man was a reminder that they were still searching and still failing. Their voices carried on, never stopping, never fading. Each song was a prayer, a plea, a promise wrapped in music. They were still calling for Persephone, even if they no longer remembered why. They sang because they couldn't stop. They sang because grief had hollowed them out and filled the empty spaces with music. The gods had given what they asked for, wings, and a voice that could carry across the sea. But they hadn't given them the one thing that they truly wanted, an end to their longing. And so the sirens remained feathered and sorrowful, forever singing, forever searching, perched between the sea and the sky, neither woman nor bird, neither living nor dead, caught in the endless echo of their own grief. And there you go. 2 tales of the sirens, one from Homer's Odyssey and one by Ovid. So what do you think? Do you have a favourite? Do you have a favourite portrayal?
Sorry, that actually brought me to tears. Jeez, that was like, I might like need a minute because that was, because I had forgotten. Like, I think I remembered once you first brought up Persephone and that they were her friends and that was part of a divine punishment. I'm like, I've definitely heard that before, but conveniently forgot that very important piece in remembering and their perception of, or anyone's perception of the sirens. But I obviously don't need to get on a whole soapbox and all of the threads that can be pulled from that. But I was like, interesting. I think that just, I don't know, to make a joke out of it, talk about girls,
Yeah.
and also just like, it just got really heavy, I think.
It's sad. It's really sad.
Very sad. Yeah. And definitely, I think, well, not to bring the mood down even more, but I feel like every woman has some relation to that of, something that happens and a part of their friend is a little bit lost. Like just this,
For sure.
crazy. And how, the part about too, the hollow eyes as they watch what is inevitable.
Because I don't think anyone ever really thinks about it like that. You don't think, maybe they don't actually want to do what they're doing. Maybe they're not able to stop it. And that makes it even sadder, doesn't it? Because they're just not in control of it.
Yeah.
The danger being a means to an entirely different end that is in and of itself a compassionate and noble goal, but it creates this pain and death.
And not to go like in a wild other vein, but like, criticisms of feminism being like, oh, you just hate all men, and there's a similar tie there of like, they probably were asking for a weapon, very upset at Hades, but not wanting to then take this wrath out on all of these innocent mortal men.
They just wanted to be detectives.
Yeah, they just want their friend back. Oof.
Yeah.
Anyway, whoa.
Yeah, that tension between what you want to be and what your nature dictates that you will be is incredibly relatable, I think, for anyone who tries to grow. The more Homeric story where there's a bit more emphasis on, Odysseus leaning on his men. I love to look for examples of sort of healthy masculinity in storytelling, and there just aren't that many.
Not a lot in mythology.
No, not really.
Even though you sort of have to choose where you start counting for it to feel like healthy masculinity, because he wants to experience this, whether it's ecstasy or knowledge, without paying the price for it. That doesn't feel the most healthy, but the reliance on his compatriots to support him in accomplishing a bucket list type goal. This is a man expressing desire, which in modern society is incredibly dangerous, which makes this sort of a vulnerable moment for him as a character and as a hero. And I know I'm focusing on him and not the sirens, but that was the sort of element of story that
his friends
stood out to me. Yeah.
Have you guys got a song you want to do on that last story?
Yeah, I got something. I don't have a clean idea for it in very few words, but sort of plea to the gods. Give me wings. that I might search the skies for you, my friend. And when I've exhausted the clouds there, when I'm certain that you're elsewhere, maybe then my pain will end. Oh gods, give me gills to swim with, that I might search the oceans for you, my friend. And when I've exhausted the deepest pits of the sea volcanoes, then maybe all my suffering will end. Oh gods, give me claws to burrow, that I might search the earth for you, my friend. And when I've exhausted everything the gods have made in Gaia's bounty, maybe all my suffering will end, my friend. Maybe finally I'll see you again, my friend. Maybe my suffering will end. Oh gods, oh gods, oh gods.
Wow, that was powerful, really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
It's a powerful story. Thank you for sharing it.
Brilliant. Okay, so now we've done the Greeks, we've done the Romans, we've talked about some stories. So let's see what happened to the Sirens after that. As the centuries passed, the image of the Siren changed. In the Middle Ages, the image of the Sirens transformed again, blending classical mythology with the Christian moral framework of the time. No longer simply tragic temptresses singing sailors to their doom, they actually became symbols of sin, particularly of lust and spiritual corruption. Which, when you think back to previous episodes of Ladies of Law, it's not much of a surprise. Usually when we get to this point in time, women, it's the same story. Their physical forms also changed. So while ancient depictions were often bird women, medieval art and literature increasingly portrayed them as half woman, half fish. Essentially an early version
The mermaid era.
of the modern mermaid. There you go, you knew. You were not wrong. Manuscripts and bestiaries from this period often describe the Sirens as beautiful women from the waist up, with the tails of fish or serpents below, and this imagery carried really symbolic weight. The upper half was alluring and human and represented temptation, the illusion of goodness and purity, but the lower half was inhuman and aquatic and reflected the hidden truth, the monstrous nature beneath the enticing exterior, and the Sirens became a warning, a living metaphor for carnal desire that led men away from God. Because that's what we do as women. We just...
Number one hobby.
That's all we want to do. We just want to lead you away. We want to lead you astray.
Secrets out.
Eat hot chip, lie, drown men.
One really striking example appears in the 12th century bestiary known as the Physiologus, which was a widely circulated text that blended natural history with moral allegory. And this describes the siren as creatures who sing with such sweetness that mariners hear them and are lulled to sleep. And when they are asleep, the sirens attack them and tear them to pieces. And the message is clear. The Sirens are not merely physical threats, but also spiritual ones. They embody the idea that pleasure leads to moral ruin. And this interpretation aligns with medieval Christian worldviews, which often equated the sea with chaos, danger, and sin. And the Sirens inhabiting this treacherous space became figures of moral peril. Medieval art also echoed these ideas. So in a 13th century French manuscript called The Bestiary of Love, a siren is depicted with a woman's head and torso, and her hair is flowing gracefully, but her lower body merges into a sinuous fishtail. She holds a mirror and a comb, objects traditionally associated with vanity, and this image reflects a dual message. She's beauty, but she's also deceptive. And the mirror hints at the sin of pride. And the comb too suggests a focus on outward appearance rather than inner virtue. And the siren isn't just a threat to sailors, but also a symbol of worldly temptation that leads believers astray. In medieval churches and cathedrals, the siren's image also found its way into stone and wood carvings. So one haunting example of this can be seen in the 12th century Romanesque carvings of the Abbey Church in France. Among the detailed depictions of sin and damnation, there is a siren with a fishtail, holding her comb, a clear representation of vanity and the seduction of the flesh. She's positioned alongside other images of sinners and demons and serves as a stark reminder of the soul's vulnerability to temptation. She's right in there with the demons, and I will put a link to that in the show notes as well, so you can have a little look too. Literature from the period further moralised the sirens. The 14th century poem The Prick of Conscience, attributed to the English cleric Richard Rolle, compares the sirens to earthly pleasures that seem sweet to start with, but lead to ruin. And the poet here warns his readers to resist such temptations, framing the sirens as a spiritual trial rather than a literal danger. And the association between sirens and sin became so pervasive that even secular works absorbed the symbolism. In Roman de la Rose, which was an allegorical French poem from the 13th century, and that explored the nature of love and desire, and the sirens pop up as seductive falsehoods that lead lovers astray from true, virtuous love. By the end of the Middle Ages, the sirens had shifted from tragic figures that we heard in Ovid's tale By the end of the Middle Ages, the sirens had shifted from tragic figures of longing and beauty that we heard in Ovid's tale, and they were now moral lessons. Their song was no longer a symbol of divine knowledge or irresistible desire, but a warning against the perils of indulgence and vanity. They remained beautiful, but their beauty was a lie. It was a shimmering illusion that, like sin itself, could only bring ruin. And this transformation laid the groundwork for the Renaissance interpretation of the sirens, and ultimately shaped the modern idea of mermaids as enchanting yet dangerous beings. And then we have the Renaissance. So here, the image of the sirens evolved once again, shaped by the era's revival of classical antiquity alongside the emerging humanist ideas that we've touched on in previous episodes. This is a time that embraced both the intellectual curiosity of the ancients and the moral reflections of the medieval world, which resulted in a much more complex and layered depiction of the sirens. They became symbols of temptation and danger again, but also of knowledge, art, and the human condition, blending the seduction with wisdom in a way that mirrored the Renaissance fascination with the duality of beauty and peril. Classical texts, rediscovered and studied with new reverence, brought back the original Greek and Roman sirens into focus. Renaissance figures, inspired by Homer and Ovid, examine the sirens not just as physical threats to sailors, but also as representations of the intellectual and spiritual temptations as well. And the idea that the sirens offered forbidden knowledge became especially prominent. Their song was no longer just a lure of the flesh, as medieval Christians had framed it, but also a call to the mind's dangerous desire for wisdom beyond human limits. And this interpretation resonated with a period enthralled by scientific inquiry and exploration, where this thirst for knowledge was celebrated but also feared. Artists and writers explored this tension with renewed depth. In the visual arts, sirens began to appear in grander, more sensual forms. And there's one really striking example in the work of the Italian painter Alessandro Allori, who depicted the sirens as beautiful, fully human women reclining on rocky shores, their allure undeniable. They are seductive, but not monstrous, and their power lies in their enchanting beauty, but also with the promise of something more. And this shift reflected the Renaissance embrace of the human body as a subject of art and admiration, inspired by classical ideals of physical perfection. At the same time, moralists continued to warn against the Sirens' temptations. The Italian poet Ariosto, in his epic Orlando Furioso, blends the classical and medieval traditions, describing how knights on their quests must resist alluring enchantresses, which is a clear nod to the Sirens' enduring symbolism as distractions from virtue and duty. And his portrayal captures the era's ambivalence, celebrating the hero's ability to overcome temptation while acknowledging seduction's undeniable pull. And the Sirens also found their way into Renaissance philosophy. So there was towering humanist thinkers which reference them in various works, such as the Oration on the Dignity of Man, and this reflected on how man stands between beasts and the angels, capable of choosing whether to pursue base pleasures or higher wisdom. The Sirens, in this context, became more than temptresses. They embodied the pull of the lower sensual self, the part that sort of distracts you from the pursuit of divine truth. In literature, siren song became a metaphor for the dangers of eloquence and art itself. The 16th century French essayist Michel de Montaigne warned against siren songs in his essays, recognising that the beauty of language and rhetoric could seduce the mind just as surely as physical charms could seduce the body. And one really notable reference of his appears in On the Education of Children, and he says, "The wise man should treat all the enchantments of the world as Ulysses treated the song of the sirens, stop his ears and reject them." Which is a bit funny because he didn't actually stop his ears.
He didn't.
He tied himself to a mast and stopped everyone else's ears and said, "Can you not let me go?" But we'll just...
Didn't Montaigne also just go off and live in a tower so that he wouldn't have to deal with the world and just write essay?
Something like that, yeah. Yeah. So, but that's what he said. But here he draws on Odysseus or Ulysses' encounter with the sirens to emphasise the importance of resisting flattery, resisting pleasure, and misleading eloquence. For him, the sirens symbolise not just physical temptation, but the seductive power of false reasoning and rhetoric. So these are distractions that could lead the mind astray from virtue and truth. And he also wrote about them again in On Drunkenness, where he offered another valuable reflection, where he said, "What the sirens sang, or what name Achilles assumed when he hid among the women, though puzzling questions, are not beyond all conjecture." And this is a bit less about moral warning and more about intellectual curiosity, which is a bit of a playful nod to the kind of questions that captivate human minds, even though they might never have definitive answers. It's a comment on the nature of knowledge itself, hinting that the siren song might also represent the lure of unsolvable mysteries, because we all love an unsolvable mystery, and the kind of endless pondering that tempts scholars, much like the way their voice has lured sailors to their dooms. And Montaigne's reflection on the sirens mirror the Renaissance's larger struggle, the tension between embracing the pleasures of the world, beauty, art, and knowledge, and the fear that such pursuits could lead to moral or spiritual ruin. He admired classical wisdom, but often tempered it with skepticism, warning that the sweetest songs might be the most dangerous ones. The Renaissance also witnessed a shift in how the siren's appearance was imagined, like I said, so there's more of a mermaid-like form, which was already emerging in the Middle Ages, but this became even more popular, and this is seen in the Italian poem Jerusalem Delivered, where the sorceress Armida mirrors the siren's role. So she uses her beauty and enchanting voice to trap and weaken the crusader Rinaldo, and though Armida is human, she's got siren-like qualities. She can sing, she's very seductive, and they mark her as an embodiment of this dangerous, consuming love that threatens heroic virtue. By the late Renaissance period, the sirens stood as powerful, multifaceted symbols. They were still warnings of temptation, but they also embodied the era's conflicting desires to seek knowledge and beauty, even at a great risk. They no longer belonged entirely to the realm of monsters or morality plays. They were tragic, alluring, dangerous, and perhaps most significantly, deeply human in their complexity.
I do think we've maybe found the answer to when did Odysseus, deciding to tie himself to the mast rather than put beeswax in his ears, become considered a foolish thing to do. And it's unsurprisingly when Christianity got involved.
You want something nice? No.
Yeah. Should have known. Should have just guessed that. Speeding on through to the 19th century now, where the image of the sirens evolved once again, shaped by the Romantic movement's fascination with the mysterious, the tragic and the sublime. While earlier periods viewed sirens as primarily symbols of sin or temptation, the Romantics saw them as figures of longing, loss and unattainable beauty, embodying both the lure of desire and the pain of unfulfilled yearning. And this transformation reflected the era's deeper exploration of human emotion and individuality, and the tension between the rational and the irrational. And the sirens became, again, less monstrous and more melancholic. Once again, they were no longer mere seductresses leading men to their doom. They were again tragic figures, symbols of the unreachable, the unknowable, and the irresistible forces of nature and passion. And that shift can be seen in literature, art, and music, where the siren's voice was reimagined not just as songs of deception, but also an expression of profound sorrow or eternal longing. In poetry, the sirens emerged as ethereal muses, both enchanting and deadly. The English poet John Keats, whose works are saturated with themes of beauty and death, touched on the sirens' allure in his poem Endymion of 1818. O magic sleep, O comfortable bird, that broodest over the troubled sea of the mind, till thou dost drown all life's inquietude, even as the siren when she charmed mankind. And Keats compares sleep itself to a siren, comforting yet dangerously seductive, a temporary escape from life's suffering that parallels the siren's pull towards oblivion. And naps are like that. Naps are very tempting. Sleep is very much a seductive thing. I think about sleep a lot during the day. Very, very much. And this portrayal reflects the romantic view of the sirens, not as evil, but as symbols of the bittersweet nature of beauty. It captivates, but it also destroys. Similarly, in Alfred Lord Tennyson's The Lotus Eaters of 1832, the siren's influence lingers in the imagery of temptation and forgetfulness. Tennyson's mariners, like the Odysseus crew, are seduced not by physical beauty, but by the promise of rest and peace, a lure that echoes the siren's call to abandon duty and surrender to pleasure. The siren's song, though not directly mentioned, haunts the poem's mood and theme. It's the pull between a beautiful, peaceful death. The visual arts of the 19th century embrace this interpretation with sensuous depictions of the sirens. Painters like John William Waterhouse, who was a pre-Raphaelite artist known for his romantic mythic imagery, portrayed the sirens and similar figures as hauntingly beautiful women with an air of sadness and mystery. His 1900 painting, Ulysses and the Sirens, shows Odysseus tied to his ship's mast, his face twisted in torment, as the sirens, depicted as fierce, bird-like women with human faces, surround the boat. Their expressions are wild and untamed, embodying both desire and danger. Waterhouse's sirens are not purely monstrous, though. They're alluring, with an unsettling, almost tragic intensity. Gustave Moreau, a French symbolist painter, also captured this duality in his work, The Sirens. Here they appear draped in flowing fabrics, blending into the waves around them. Their faces are sorrowful, their eyes are distant, and the human figure that they encircle seems more entranced than terrified. Moreau's sirens seem less like predators and more like spectral beings, embodying longing and loss rather than malice. In music, composers of the 19th century drew upon the siren's symbolism too. Richard Wagner tapped into their allure in his opera The Ring of the Nibelung, where water nymphs, which are distant relatives of the sirens, use their ethereal voices to tempt and deceive. The musical language mirrors the siren's pull, haunting melodies and unresolved harmonies that create an endless sense of yearning, a sound that beckons but never fulfills. Even science and psychology picked up on the sirens' evolving symbolism. Sigmund Freud, building on 19th century ideas about desire and repression, later referenced the sirens as representations of the unconscious pull towards self-destruction, a beautiful temptation leading to one's undoing. And though Freud's work came out in the early 20th century, his ideas were rooted in the romantic fascination with the darker side of human nature that had flourished in the previous century. So by the time we get to the end of the 19th century, the sirens had transformed from medieval monsters into figures of tragic beauty and existential longing. They no longer represented just the dangers of temptation, but also the allure of the unattainable, that dream forever out of reach, the song forever half heard. They embodied the romantic hero's plight, to desire something so profoundly that it becomes worth risking everything, even one's life, to grasp it, knowing all the while that it might never truly be grasped at all. And I guess that brings us to the modern day, where, you guessed it, the sirens are still very much present.
If we have a minute, I would love to do... We haven't done an actual siren song yet. Like what, and then what you were saying about the harmony. What, did you have an idea?
Oh, I just building off of that, something that has stood out to me is that we have all of these visual depictions of sirens, and we have all these poetic depictions, which are in the oral tradition. But besides the Wagner, there's not a lot of attempts to, and maybe that's just we haven't touched on them, but like attempts to depict their music or descriptions of the music. Like we know they had lyres at one point and then they kind of bailed on those. But like, I don't know, they could have been doing like pop punk the whole time, you know? Like there's not a lot of,
it could have been
like,
anything.
They were kind of sad, we know, but I guess if it is meant to be unknowable and drives people like beyond themselves, that, you know, trying to represent it is a little bit of a fool's errand, but also it's fun that they don't seem to really try that to at all.
We're fools.
Yeah, we're fools.
we'll fail at anything.
We'll do it.
There's a lot swirling around.
Yeah.
Like let's try to do our best now that we have so many different.
Embody the sexy librarian.
I think, what did I write down? Yeah, we have the tragic figures. Yeah, and the temptations, not just the flesh, but also of the mind. I think if we just try our best to recreate what our idea in this current moment, it could sound like. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Something kind of like airy, you know? And that's kind of the temptation to just do like, but maybe we start there and see where it goes.
Search for answers brings you to your end. But in your last moments, will your spirit ascend?
Curiosity to spare.
feathers or scales. I hide a secret. I hide the world. Find feathers or scales to share your burdens with me.
Don't you think I'm beautiful? Don't you think I'm beautiful? More than anyone should know.
Behind feathers or scales.
Share the
Feathers or scales.
burden with me. I've been cursed with knowledge beyond comparing. You've been cursed with curiosity to spare. Maybe we must first
Mind us It'll be worth it in the end.
wash your worries away. So share, I share.
Wow.
I think that was cool.
That was really cool. So cool. Amazing. I can't wait to hear these properly because I can hear it, but I can't hear it all like, as it's going to be. I'm really excited to hear it. Yeah, it's just so
Some
so
reverb
much
on there.
excitement.
Yeah, cool.
Okay.
Same. It's
In modern
it's-
times. Oh, sorry. Carry on. No, carry on. You
Oh
go.
no, I was gonna say same. It's like it's always special to hear it in the room and to be in the flow with everyone here creating it together. And there's also really a joy in sort of crafting it afterwards to see parts of the song that I didn't get to hear because I was trying, my mind was racing and I was trying to come up with more words, or I was focused on harmonizing right and somebody did something incredibly clever or incredibly heartfelt.
Lauren will sometimes sing something really funny, but really quietly as a beautiful little counter melody. Yeah. And then we'll be listening back and we're like, wait, what was that joke?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we have done a lot of like just counterpoint, and I think that's been our like subconscious interpretation. But I think it's going to sound really cool, like all together.
Yeah.
But if the
yeah.
Sirens didn't do harmony, what if they just sang the same melody?
Yeah, they just
We
went
don't know.
around.
What if they did barbershop? What if they did pentatonics a cappella?
I'm the beatboxing siren. That's so funny.
Great. In modern times, the Sirens have undergone yet another transformation, shaped by contemporary ideas of power, identity, and desire. No longer confined to the roles of monstrous seductresses or tragic figures, they become more complex and multifaceted. They're symbols of empowerment, danger, beauty, and even self-discovery. Across books, television, films, and music, Sirens now reflect society's evolving attitudes towards gender, temptation, and the search for one's true voice. Sirens have emerged as feminist symbols representing female autonomy and resilience. We love a feminist moment.
Let's go, girls.
And the reclaiming of voices that were once silenced or demonized. Once portrayed as dangerous temptresses luring men to their doom, Sirens are now frequently reframed as embodiments of female power. Figures who challenge patriarchal narratives that reduce women to passive objects or villainous seductresses. One of the most striking modern literary examples of this shift is Margaret Atwood's poem, Siren Song. Atwood gives sirens a voice that is self-aware, sly and subversive. The siren speaks directly to the listener, exposing the power imbalance embedded in the original myth. And it goes, at times, "This is the one song everyone would like to learn. The song that is irresistible." And she then goes on to reveal the trap behind the seduction. "I don't enjoy it here, squatting on this island, looking picturesque and mythical." Atwood dismantles the male fantasy of the siren as an object of desire, instead showing her as a woman trapped in the role that men project onto her. The siren doesn't seduce out of pleasure or out of malice. She sings because it's what the world expects her to do. The power dynamic shifts. The men are no longer victims, but they're complicit in their own downfall. The siren, meanwhile, becomes a figure of bitter truth, aware of her power and of the system that exploits it. And then you have novels like Madeline Miller's Circe of 2018, which further explore this humanisation of ancient mythological figures. Though the book focuses primarily on the sorceress Circe, it revisits Odysseus's journey and the world of the Sirens, portraying them not just as deadly creatures, but as beings shaped by the gods and their own suffering, which are echoes of the tragic Sirens in Ovid's Metamorphoses. Television has also embraced the Sirens as powerful, often morally ambiguous figures. The 2018 freeform series Siren reimagines them as mermaids living in a coastal town, blending supernatural horror with modern empathetic portrayals. The show's lead, Rin, is a siren who struggles between her predatory nature and her growing bond with humans. This version of the siren leans into themes of identity and control. Rin's voice is still a weapon capable of manipulating and harming, but it's also a tool of communication and survival. And then Netflix has The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, where the Sirens make an appearance as the Weird Sisters, 3 powerful witches whose ethereal beauty and hypnotic allure give them a distinctly siren-like quality. They are seductive and dangerous, but also fiercely loyal and independent, embodying the modern fascination with morally complex but powerful women. Film has embraced the Sirens' duality, beauty and danger, while pushing the boundaries of their traditional role. Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides present sirens as stunning mermaids who lure sailors in with haunting songs before transforming into vicious predators. And this sort of harks back to the ancient Greek idea of sirens as bird-like monsters, but also blends it with the mermaid imagery that's dominated Western culture since the Middle Ages. So it's a bit of a mashup, really. And there's other films like The Lighthouse of 2019, and that dives into a more psychological aspect of the Sirens myth. The film's unnamed protagonist experiences hallucinations of haunting beautiful mermaids, a representation of his sexual repression and his gradual descent into madness. The siren here become less of a physical being and more of a symbol, a manifestation of inner turmoil and unreachable desire. Music too has embraced the Sirens' allure. Actually, one of my favourite songs is called Song to the Siren. Back when I used to have a SoundCloud where I did acoustic covers, I believe a cover of this very song by me exists. And I'll challenge any of you to find that, because I can't actually remember what my account was called. And if I did, I still wouldn't tell you, because I don't want you to hear that. But Song to the Siren is a haunting, almost ethereal piece of music that draws directly from the myth of the Sirens while transforming their imagery into something deeply personal and melancholic. And it was originally written by Tim Buckley and Larry Beckett, and their song was first performed in 1968 and then later recorded for Buckley's 1970 album Star Sailor. And over time, it became one of his most enduring and beloved works. And the song reflects the Sirens not as literal monsters, but as symbols of unreachable love and longing and self-destruction. Buckley's lyrics take on the voice of someone who's captivated, even willingly doomed, by a distant, untouchable figure. A modern echo of Odysseus's perilous desire to hear the siren song. And some of the lyrics go, "Long afloat on shipless oceans, I did all my best to smile, till your singing eyes and fingers drew me loving to your isle." And this oceanic imagery is unmistakable, and it evokes the same sort of restless, endless waves that surround the Sirens' island in the Odyssey. And the singer is adrift, powerless against the pull of the siren's voice. The line, "Drew me loving to your isle," mirrors Odysseus's own longing, a desire so profound that it transcends the knowledge that might lead to ruin. The siren is depicted not as an external force, but as an intimate, almost divine presence, your singing eyes and fingers, blurring the line between lover and destroyer. And there's this eerie sort of sweetness in this portrayal, capturing the way the siren song is described as beautiful, even comforting, despite its deadly consequences. And the chorus deepens this sense of helpless yearning. "Did I dream you dreamed about me? Were you hare when I was fox? Now my foolish boat is leaning, broken lovelorn, on your rocks." Here, the siren is not a voice or a vision, but it's a reciprocal presence. And the singer wonders if the siren, too, dreamed of him. This twist intensifies the tragedy, and the seduction feels mutual, but the outcome is inevitable. The image of the foolish boat broken on the rocks mirrors the fate of countless sailors who couldn't resist the siren's call. And the line captures that paradox so central to the myth, the idea that we chase what destroys us, often knowingly. The song's emotional power is heightened in this Mortal Coils version, where Elizabeth Fraser's otherworldly vocals make the siren feel like a ghost, both mournful and unreachable. Fraser herself has spoken about how the song held personal weight for her, particularly after her relationship with Jeff Buckley, who was Tim Buckley's son, making the track almost mythically layered with grief, loss and longing. So Song to the Siren reimagines this ancient myth as a deeply human experience. The siren becomes less about temptation and more about painful, often destructive pull of love and desire, the kind that feels fated, beautiful and tragic all at once. In this way, the song captures the heart of the siren story, not just as a warning against external temptation, but as an explanation of the part of ourselves that can't resist the call, even when we know the rocks are waiting. And honestly, if you've not listened to it, you should. I'm also partial to Robert Plant's version. George Michael also has a version. There's quite a lot of versions of this song, so if you've not listened to it, definitely have a little listen.
Can I recommend one for your audience?
Yes, please.
It's Tim Buckley on The Monkey Show doing it live, so you can find it on YouTube. It's stunning. I'm going to play this for my folks after the recording.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
To paint a picture of what's been happening on our side of the room, as India has been sharing this, is that Noah has been with his guitar sort of picking but not playing what some of the chords are and mouthing every lyric.
It's such a good song. It's a great song. Yeah, it's a beautiful song, a really beautiful, beautiful song. And it does, I really, reading through the lyrics and properly like taking them in and analysing them and thinking, you know, we do sometimes, we know what's coming. We know it's going to be bad. We know the rocks are waiting, but we're still going to go and chase the thing anyway, which I think is a really powerful sort of thing. Yeah, really powerful message. In rock music, the siren has appeared more literally. The Finnish symphonic metal band Nightwish released a track called The Siren in 2004, blending haunting melodies with operatic vocals to capture the ethereal, deadly allure of the myth, and the lyrics reflect the timeless pull of the siren's call. A siren from the deep came to me, sang my name, my longing. And the siren song is no longer a physical danger, but also an emotional one, a call to embrace pain and desire, even, again, knowing that it might end in ruin. Today, sirens are more layered than ever before. They're still seductive, they're still dangerous, but they're also victims, rebels, and complex figures, navigating a world that often tries to define or control them, whether they appear as tragic muses, empowered warriors, or symbols of psychological torment. One thing remains consistent, and that is that the siren song still holds us captive just as it did sailors thousands of years ago. But sirens are no longer just monsters. They also have become symbols of empowerment. In some stories, their voice is a source of strength rather than destruction. Modern depictions from fantasy novels to pop culture reclaim their song, transforming them from fatal temptresses to powerful beings in control of their own destiny. In modern feminist discourse, the siren has become a symbol of women taking back control of their voices, of their bodies, of their stories. Where the ancient sirens were condemned for speaking too beautifully, today's sirens are celebrated for refusing to be silenced. They embody the radical notion that a woman's voice, when freed from the constraints of societal expectation, can still hold the power to reshape the world. And that power, far from being feared, should be embraced.
Hell yeah. Sorry, I had to let that out.
Fire away. And that's all I got. And then I'm going to the outro. So if you guys have got a song there.
Like an embracing your voice.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Maybe something a little bit more driving.
Yeah. voice. Use your words. Hide the promise. Secrets within. Take your voice. Hide the secrets. And never let them in.
Is it what I say, or is it how I say it? Give a bother to my words as long as I play it. You cursed me with a voice that if I use would be a weapon, but don't. I refuse to silence the voice. Take the reins with the pain. Let you hear me clean. What I say, how I say it again. What does that say? When I scream to you, you turn away. What I say, how I say it. What I say, how I say it. What I say, how I say it. Come closer now. Tell me, how good do I sound? I know you tried to hide.
Set me free. Untie me. Have to go.
I know my voice echoes in your mind all the time.
That was so good. Oh my God, guys. It's great.
Indy, what an absolute treat.
Yeah.
Great. I'm in awe. I'm like, wow.
So are we. This has been beautiful. Like, I don't know if it's worth speaking on recording about, but like, I am just thinking back to why I picked this character. And a very like surface, almost selfish level was like, I had not played an RPG game before. I was a little insecure still about building the story, but I was like, what I am secure about is my voice, more in a vocal like skill level. I'm like, I know I can just, if I get freaked out, I can just belt something out or do some opera and it'll be okay. And I was like, oh, what's a good vessel for that? Maybe she's a siren and I could just get along with like being a great singer. But I think what's been so lovely is like peeling back all of these layers of Mara, and now I have so many like nuggets that I feel like I can pull from as we move forward, having a deeper understanding. Because I think playing this character, I think I've woven in my own insecurities into her, but also I think I probably, we both of us, Miss Girl and myself, have a lot to learn about this kind of reclaiming this confidence, you know, and I think it ties really well in with the kind of larger arc of her inner conflict and how that's been represented in like the different perceptions and representations of sirens. Like, this is just very exciting. Yeah.
I'm glad to give you all the nuggets.
Yes,
I'm excited
thank you.
to hear you
They're
guys
gold.
what you do with it after this episode. So yeah, yeah, that's great.
And from a songwriting perspective too, like you were saying about songs inspired by myth, and myth as allegory, myth as a way of processing what someone's going through in the present, is always something that has really appealed to me and been a well that I draw from often. And so I would say it's just been really fun, really enriching, and gives so many little gifts, so many threads to weave with, so many lenses with which to examine things emotionally and create song. So thank you.
Yeah, that's a more eloquent way of saying nugget. That was beautiful.
No, I like nuggets. I was trying to come up with nuggets.
Also, like, it's just so beautiful, the kind of conversation and like recurring theme of friendship that we've talked about in all the different stories today with, you know,
Sailor Bros.
Yeah, Sailor Bros
Siren
and
gals?
Persephone's Girl Squad. But also, like, I'm so proud to be a part of a project that passes the Bechdel test with flying colors and just a beautiful, like, female friendship between Mara and Aubrey that's depicted. I think there's so much that now I just want to go deeper into the kind of beauty of all of that. I'm not going to start getting emotional about it, but I could. Who
Also,
knows?
not to tease connections to our podcast further, but I came into this thinking like, oh, there's so much for Mara, there's so much for Lauren to draw from here, and not realizing my character Aubrey has so much connection to the seasons and the idea of the loss that comes with the changing of the seasons. And so to explore the way in which those themes have mythological precedents of being entwined feels very special for these characters and is something that we've already been exploring in the story without maybe even knowing.
Great. No, I'm so excited to see what you guys do, where you go with it. I've been listening to your podcast. I think it's great. I love it. It's honestly, you guys are insanely talented. It's so cool to listen to it anyway, as it is on the podcast, but to actually like say stuff out of my mouth and then 2 minutes later you guys are singing things. It's blowing my mind. It's been honestly the coolest experience, the best thing. So I'm so grateful to you for coming on the show and well, making it your show really, because it's so honestly.
Yeah.
So the Sirens have never truly left us. Their shape has changed, their song has evolved, but their power remains. They continue to call to us, whether from the pages of ancient epics or the flickering screens of modern entertainment. And here's a question for you, and maybe RPG Major, you might want to answer this as well. If you heard the Siren song today, would you resist it? Or, like Odysseus, would you let yourself listen, even knowing the danger? Would the temptation be too temptating for you? What would you do? Big question.
Do I have the option of having my friends tie me to a mast?
Yeah, would you be tied to the mast?
It seems like the easy out.
Would you put the beeswax in your ears?
Yeah, who's team beeswax here?
No,
absolutely not.
None of
I'm
yeah.
team
I feel
mast.
like I'd end up on the rocks. I'm being so real. I feel like I would be so pleaded with my girls, and they'd be like, "Oh, we'll help you, we'll tie you," and then I would end up on the rocks, but maybe better for it.
It's too tempting, isn't it? It's too tempting.
I'm a former trivia writer, fact checker. I love research. I love knowledge.
Yeah.
I think coming into this, I would have been like, I don't care. The temptation that they are characterized with is so straight-coded, like feminine seduction, that I was like, oh, no, I would never. And then they're like, we have all the knowledge in the world. And I'm like, okay, you got me.
We have the knowledge. And then you're like, sign me up, tie me to the mast.
Yeah, get my friends.
If life is a journey in which we get to know ourselves and the world better, what more fitting end than to end immediately after coming to understand yourself completely, if that's what wisdom really is.
Wow.
The one caveat I have to give my girly pops more credit, what I would hope to happen is like, we're all on the ship, right? And we're all like, those girls sound great. And we all like go join them and we like maybe crochet together. We have like a little moment. And like, then maybe they kill us. But like, we had a great time. The girls trip, joke is overused. But that's funny as sorry.
Oh, I love it. Right, well, I think that is about all we have time for today on Ladies of Law, the musical. I really hope that you've enjoyed this. It's been so much fun to do this. I can't even talk. I'm so excited that the ability to formulate words has gone from my brain. I really hope that you've all enjoyed this episode. It's been so much fun. And I do encourage you to go and check out RPG Major's amazing podcast, which is full of fantastic songs, maybe not as erotic as today's episode, I don't know, but still just as enjoyable. I'm so grateful to have had you guys on the show. I really hope you've had fun doing a little singing with me. And if you've enjoyed the episode, guys, please feel free to follow both Ladies of Law and RPG Major over on your favourite podcast platforms. Leave us both a comment or review. You can come and chat with me on Blue Sky or TikTok. Have you guys got any kind of social media?
We have an Instagram and a Blue Sky as well. both of those are at RPG Major.
We also have a Discord where we take song title requests. We chat with folks about the process, improv tips, song recommendations,
Audition tips for musical
audition tips, out of context spoilers. It's a really nice group.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, well, I'll put all of that in the show notes so everybody can go and check that out. It's really, really definitely worth doing. So I think that's about it. So I'll be back next week to unravel another thread in the rich tapestry of women in mythology and folklore.
Also, I just fact-checked it, and Montaigne did eventually wall himself out in a tower of the Citadel where he totally isolated himself from every social and family affair. It's just a library, and that's where he wrote all his essays. What a dork.
What a dork.
I mean, he did invent the essay, so good for him.
I'm the beatboxing siren.
Yeah!
Yeah!
Yay!
Sleigh boots.
Yay!
That was so fun. That was
That was
really
so
fun.
good. That was really, really fun, guys. The best time.
Thank you, India. That was amazing.
Thank you so much.